Hey, if you're a designer and architect, my name's Hunter. I'm one of the founders of RevMax here. And essentially, I want to take this video to answer three major questions. How do we work? How does our process work? And how do we get results? Now, my biggest goals, and by the end of this, is one, either you're actually able to do this yourself. Two, you are able to be very clear on if this makes sense. Three, if it doesn't make sense. And then by the end, you at least have a clarity on how to do marketing at the highest level. Now, if we look at the general problems that we solve, most problems that we solve is either a case of we are underperforming than what we're used to just with time moving forward, right? We have either lost in revenue, we are losing money, business is going down. We are having a conversation about getting back to a certain place we were at. The opposite of that is another situation where people are dissatisfied. They want to get to the next level within their business, right? Which is either going to be having a conversation about growth. Okay, how are we going to get to the next level? And both of those require a strategy. Both of those require fuel, fire, things of that nature. And so either you lay on one side of that or the other side. The point is that most people don't have that crystal ball they can just rub to generate more projects, right? If you rely on referrals or you word of mouth or just friends networking, dinner dates, things of that nature, you might be able to start your business that way, but scaling this business or adding some consistency is not going to come from the crystal ball you can't rub, right? And so that's why we have the systems, infrastructure, things in place, which honestly breaks down to two things, right? 50% of our result comes from ads, strategy, things of that nature, right? The actual theory, right? The other 50% actually comes from the infrastructure, and I'll go ahead and outline both of those here. Let's just go ahead and jump straight into it.
Hey, what's going on? We're going to jump straight into it, man. I'm so pumped. One, this is going to be really engaging in the way that I will ask questions. And I actually do want you to think through the questions that I'm asking because they're extremely important. One, two, and I want you to follow through with this. I don't want this to be, words going to deaf ears, right? I want this to actually go in one ear, process in the brain, and then come out the other with actual intent or just some level of understanding. That's all it is, nothing more, nothing less. Let's jump straight into it. Just to start off, I've been watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay recently, Hell's Kitchen. And it's actually really interesting how educational that can be in the way where they he goes into restaurants that are broken or just absolutely at the end of its days per se. And almost always, and you especially if you binge watch it like 40 hours a week, you'll start to realize very common patterns between all the businesses that are doing that. And almost always it's one, the owners are very old school, as in they operate as they once were before. They'll always speak about how in the past this was great and now it's not, and things are still the same. So that's one pattern. Obviously, there's a bunch of others, right? You have the ego of the actual owner, and like you'll watch the show, and you'll come from a perspective like, why don't you just make this change? Isn't it so obvious? But like in the brain of those people in that moment, they don't really find it that obvious as to what needs to be changed, what can be better, things of that nature. They're just always stuck in what was always familiar, what was always safe for them. And so when Gordon Ramsay comes in there with the energy and the oi might and all that good stuff, and they bring that fire into the kitchen, he is absolutely destroying and absolutely wrecking what they got going on. And almost always it's the owners getting defensive. It's almost the owner just like walking out in frustration. Oh, my cooking's always been good. We always get good complaints or good compliments and stuff, but their business is empty. There's no one in the restaurant. So like, what are we gonna do about that? It's always been interesting to think about that. So essentially, it kind of relates to all things business, being even from us as from a business perspective, or maybe this resonates with you at all, as in it's always the things that we're most familiar with that work when they work and don't work when they don't work. And when they don't work, what decisions are you making to help yourself get out of that position? Right. And so it's either, like I said earlier, we're having a conversation about growth or we're having a conversation about getting back to, a stable state where we once were. Right. And that's going to have to come from some type of change. So we'll dive into 50% first being the actual strategy and marketing. Now, please follow through with this because I think it's extremely important. And I don't think anybody else on the market is actually doing this. And it's honestly been the biggest change that helps our clients get extreme good results just by this one shift. Now, everyone's familiar with advertising, right? Everyone's familiar with Facebook advertising, Instagram, YouTube, Google, things of that nature. Everyone's very familiar with these things. If you're not, then I encourage you, and I do get familiar with it, and maybe this video can help in doing that. One, this is a question to you guys. What do you think is the most fatal flaw with paid advertising? What do you think that is? And if you're thinking to yourself, well, I guess it just doesn't work, or I guess, I don't know, I really wouldn't know. I would encourage to just take this as food for thought, being that anything marketing is honestly problem solving. If we get a lead in and they're not responding, that is a problem. It is not a problem. It's not a root problem. It's a symptom of a bigger problem, almost always. The same way, if you're having any design issues or things are coming up as in your design process, this is not a root problem as like designing doesn't work or your process doesn't work. It just goes to show that there is a symptom happening because of something else. So if we're getting leads through the door that aren't picking up or they aren't qualified, this isn't a problem. It's a symptom of a bigger problem. And the problem might be you're not qualifying enough. You're not doing X. You're not doing Y. You're not doing Z. And so it just goes to show that if you feel like you're unsure of why a strategy doesn't work, don't be so quick to give up on it. You might need to be even quicker on getting better at it. Okay. And so just to break this down, right? The most biggest fatal flaw is best described if you have any hobby. Now, I like watches, but I think, and this might be kind of crazy, but I think we'll use golf clubs just as like a general, maybe something a lot of people can relate to. Golf clubs, golfing, etc. Essentially, if you ever scroll and you see an ad pop up with a bag of golf clubs, now when you see this bag of golf clubs, you click on this ad, and as you're going through it, you see the price of the product. You're just like, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, I might consider buying it. You click on it. Let's just say you don't buy it for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. You go back to Facebook. What do you think? This is a question for you guys. What do you think is the next ad you're going to see? Now, if you said golf clubs, you're 100,000% right. You're probably not going to see anything about baby food. You're not going to see anything about, Mustang GT. You're probably not going to see anything about Hell's Kitchen. You're going to see exactly what you just clicked on, which almost always is the golf clubs. Now, the problem with this is that that company that just sent an ad your way and you went through their whole entire funnel and was just about to purchase, and then to go back to Facebook and then seeing other offers for golf bags from, John, Jerry, and all these different types of people, what do you think is the biggest problem when it comes to running paid advertisements? Is that we're doing all of this work to get someone through our funnel just for them to go back to the platform and start seeing every other firm on the planet, every other designer on the planet, every other, somebody with an offer with different positioning, with different, strategies, with different brand reputation, right? And if it takes trust, know, like, and trust to be the core pillars of why someone will work with you, if some firm has better know, like, trust factor than you do, well, then you're just out leveraged and they will steal your business. And so it just goes to show, well, the only reason you're getting fed those ads is because you are one of these types of people, right? If we look at the funnel of awareness, right? There is a funnel in marketing. There's something called stages of awareness. It's the stages somebody goes through before they buy. Now, most always it's I'm unaware. I become problem aware. I'm aware that I have a problem. I'm aware that I have a project that I need to get done, but I just don't know the next steps. Now I'm solution aware. Now I know that I need an architect at some point in this process. And then product aware is like, okay, I'm familiar with John. I'm familiar with Sarah and her firm and whatnot. And then most aware is we're signing a contract, right? Now, here's the thing is that if I could ask you and think about why don't people use architects more often? Why don't people have conversations with designers more often? Almost always, it comes back to the fact that no one knows that they need an architect or a designer until the builder brings it up to them. Or in the other case, they just don't know. And so, where do you put someone in the category that they don't know of? Well, it's going to be problem aware. They know that they have to get a project done, but they haven't found a solution yet until they speak with their builder. And the builder says, "Oh, wait, well, you're going to need a designer." And then at that point, what do? Now they're solution aware. Okay, so I just want you guys to understand that type of that connection there, right? And so when we talk about solution-based marketing, which almost honestly makes up about 3 to 7% of the total market, what you'll start to realize is, who do you think advertisers are most after? Do you think it's after the baby food? Is it after the Hell's Kitchen audience? Or is it after the people who already know that they need an architect? Now, if you've ever looked at advertising, you'll find an example being, are you looking for an architect for your custom home design? Are you looking for X? Are you looking for Y? Hey, if you're looking to build this, our team does this, and we can actually help you do this. It's almost always the same. Why? Because almost every advertiser on planet Earth working with a firm, even internal people, are going after one type of person. And that's going to be people who are solution aware, people who already know they need an architect. Now, the biggest thing with this is, like, if I were to put you in a room with 10 people who know that they need an architect and are actively looking, but in that same room with 10 people that are solution aware, there's also 4 other different firms. What do you think are the chances of you walking into that room and closing someone? How many people do you think you'd be able to close? Now, after so many conversations with architects, designers, you might say 1, you might say 2, you might say 0, you might say 3, whatever. The point is that when you walk in this room, number one, there's 4 other firms in there. And so if any of them has a bigger brand than you, or more of a better offer than you, or cheaper than you, what do you think is going to happen? Well, they're probably going to take more business than you. 2 is that not only are they in the room as competitors, but think about the actual prospects. How do you think they're going to conversate with you in this process? Are they going to be like, "Oh, absolutely, I would love to pay your fees or do XXX," or are they going to be like, "So what do you charge? How do you compare to Mr. Joe here? How do you go about your process?" Right? And they're already considering like multiple options, and it just comes confusing. It's like, listen, man, there's no difference between me, Joe, John, Julie. The only difference is how we charge. And now I'll just let you know now, like, it doesn't matter who you pick, you still have a problem to solve. And so no matter where you go with that, you still need to solve this problem. So pick one. Like, seriously. And if you're going to pick one, is it going to be the most expensive or the most, we'll put it this way, cheapest, right? And so it just becomes an ugly conversation of trying to work with people that just aren't as in tuned, or just are only looking for an architect with the best price, especially if they're coming out looking at many different architects, right? And that is the problem with solution-based marketing. But it's so ROIable. As in, we could spend a minimal amount of money and be able to bring someone and go through that rough of a conversation, and then by the end they close with us, right? Now, the ROI on that is much quicker, right? It's much more gratifying. It's very fast gratification. So you can spend $1 and hopefully close the project by the end. But the problem becomes is when every single advertiser on the planet is doing that as well. It comes back to what we talked about in the beginning. The biggest problem with paid advertising right now is people seeing their competitors and going back to the platform, getting served more and more ads. It's a problem. And so we have to think like, this is called solution-based marketing. We are selling the solution, which almost always is you. But think about it from every other perspective, right? Your competitors are doing this. The actual prospects you speak to are probably seeing 10,000 other ads. Okay. And so this is where now the question becomes, how do we get around this, right? How do we solve this issue? Can we take a swerve to the right and miss that, long highway, I-4 traffic if you're down in Florida, right? The best step to do is to actually take a step back in awareness. Now, people, when they hear step back, they think of losing progress or losing money, but it's just such short level thinking. And the problem aware state is still people who have a project to be done, but they just aren't aware that they're going to need an architect or a designer of some sort, right? And so, given that most people don't know that they need a designer, what you'll find is that this problem aware types of people already make up 80% of the market. It's a much bigger group of fish. It's not that you're a small fish in a small pond. Now you're a small fish in a big pond, allowing yourself to make more of the market. And the whole goal is we're taking a more problem-based marketing approach, which means that we're taking much more of an educational approach. Now, especially if you're after entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, developers, people with high levels, I can almost guarantee you that what we've seen across the board is that they're all entrepreneurial minded. They're all in the business to make lots of money, change their life in some way, etc. And almost every entrepreneur is so dopamine addicted to learning. Almost all entrepreneurs are fans of learning things that they're interested in. And if someone has a project, what do you think they're going to do in the process of building that project? Well, everyone's biggest fear is making the worst mistake. Nobody likes to make mistakes. Everybody wants to be educated. Everybody wants to be prepared. And so when we can take an educational approach, starting with, hey, here's the top 3 mistakes developers make before planning their project. And there's many, many versions of this. As in, if I just think of a couple examples as like, well, hey, your builder is only good as your plans. Here's how you can find the best way. Here's the best ways to find a plan. Here's the one way to find the best plan, right? And then you just kind of break down the beliefs that most buyers have, right? But you're providing free value first into the market instead of just taking from the market. Most people don't like the salesy taking stuff. They like the educating, the working with person versus anybody else. And so the outcome is that people are more willing to open up to you because they're not the type of architect or the solution-based people over here that are just like, it's definitely a difference in demeanor, right? If you were in that room of 10 people, do you think they're so open? Do you think they're so vulnerable to you? Do you think they're very, considering with like letting you know their entire project? Almost always not, because they've already heard your spiel from 10 different other people. Okay. Versus problem aware people, it's like this is a whole different arena. If I were to put you in a room with 100 people that were problem aware, as they knew that they were building something, but they didn't know the next steps that were coming before they spoke with their builder. They're in that problem aware state, and I put you on stage for 10 to 15 minutes, and you are educating them from going from I have a building, I'm not sure where to go next, and then now John is telling me that I should probably look at an architect for it because the builder's going to bring it up anyways, right? And so when you are the one educating them from going from problem aware to then solution aware, you're taking 80% of the market and you're educating them, going from one place to the other. Do you think this person is going to go back to Google and say, hey, is there any local architects near me? Or are they just going to follow through with who's already provided value to them, educated them, learned from? Okay. And if your answer is yes, they're going to continue going with who they just educated from. You're 100% right. The biggest companies do not use, why do you think the most biggest companies only do webinars, right? It's because it's this period of time where they were doing a lot of educating, helping someone go from problem aware to solution aware. And then by the end, they have calendars fully packed and they have a lot more effort and more volume in terms of money, closes, right? Project fees, design fees. Point is that it's a much different approach, and people are not willing to go back to Google and just go to someone random when they just spent 10 minutes with you in terms of educating and you've helped them get from point A to point B. Number two, if you're in that room of 100 people, how many competitors do you think will be in the same room of 100 problem aware people? Because if everyone is after these solution-based people who are solution aware, and that makes a room of 10 have 4 competitors in it, well, how many competitors do you think will be in the room with you and 100 people that don't even know that they need an architect yet? Well, almost always close to none, because the ROI is, from a theory standpoint, is not there just yet. Hasn't realized as quickly as it would with solution-based. Okay. And so if you've answered the question as in saying maybe 1, maybe 2, that's way significantly less than 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. Okay. And the point is that there's much more market to be grabbed here. And so if I were to put you in that room with 100 people that you've now helped educate to the next level, which is them considering that they need an architect, how many of them do you think you'd be able to close? If your answer was 0, you probably need to get some sales training. And I say that respectfully, because the answer is not 0. It's much, much more than 1 or 2. Much, much more. And it's because people are not willing to go to someone random. They rather go with someone they're familiar with, their trust, right? And people that they're familiar with, their trust, are the ones that are educating them. And if you're educating them, well, then you fit that position, right? Now, from here, we run into other problems. We run into major problems that will start to come up, and I'll address how we handle those. But do you see the connection between, if we take a solution-based approach, we're after smaller margins of the market, these people are already talking to architects most times, and they're much difficult to actually go ahead and close. Versus if you actually went backwards in the state of awareness and we targeted problem-based people, that by the end, we can start having more people who are more vulnerable and have more money and more just trust that you can build over online consistently than you would anything else, right? And so with this way, there's going to be more problems that arrive. But here's the thing I want you to still keep in mind. What is the biggest flaw with paid advertising right now? Well, just to give you a hint, again, a reminder, it's going to be that people come back to the platform and get more ads. So what do you think the best next step is? We have to keep them off of the platform. Now, this is where things get interesting, and this is where the other 50% comes in, which is going to be the actual system, right? The actual infrastructure, right? So from actual conversation, a lead inputting their information to them booking on the calendar or not, the infrastructure from this point forward is going to change the absolute game. Now, the thing is that we need to keep them off the funnel. So when someone clicks on our ad and they're going through our funnel and they're being educated, and then by the end, they're actually really considering it, like, oh, they probably are going to need an architect. Well, the last thing you want to do is actually have them go back to the platform. And so that's where one of our infrastructures come in, which is going to be AI agents. AI agents that are built from the ground up. This is not ChatGPT. This is not one big prompt. We just say, hey, can you solve all these problems? Because most times AI is not good at doing many things great. It's only good at doing many things good. Okay. It's kind of like if you've ever seen voice AI or if you've ever dabbled with ChatGPT, you're almost having to educate it on what you want versus it just giving you what you want, because it's not built from the ground up that way. It's built in a way to miss social cues, social nuance, which most times is never handled. Right. And so that's why we have AI agents that are really good at specific parts of the sales process. One, for example, is discovery. One, for example, is nurturing. One example is for booking, et cetera, follow up for 30 to 60 days straight follow up. Okay. Like those are exactly the AI agents that are helping keep these people off the platform. How we do this by messaging them immediately. So not only are they going through our videos and our funnel to like get more educated and get more, nurtured, the second step to that is now they're now they're getting a text message by us. Now that they just hopped off Facebook and now they're on their iPhone messaging or Android messaging, what do you think Facebook's reaction is to them coming off the platform? Well, if your answer was, I don't know, or I'm not too sure, well, wouldn't you agree that Facebook's biggest incentive goal is to keep people on the platform? So the moment that they noticed that they saw your ad and then left the platform for the rest of the day, do you see the connection as how Facebook would react in a way that's probably negative? Like, okay, well, maybe these ads don't work for them. So what do you think is going to happen when they come back to the platform? Are they going to see, competitors' ads? Are they going to see more of what, other people are doing? Or are they going to just see something else? Well, They probably will see maybe one or two of other people's ads, but almost always they're not seeing exactly what we just shown them, and no one's really taking the educational approach. So the chances are that this person is now just in Facebook, seeing other ads for maybe a purse or baby food or whatever is probably much more likely than they would be your ads. Okay. Now the point is here is that it doesn't matter because they're already in our funnel. We've already now messaged them. We already are in contact with them. One, two is that now that they're talking to us via text, our actually own internal sales team, which if you have the equivalent of that, great, right? We have a sales team that go ahead and call these leads immediately so we can get them on the phone and onto the calendar. And this is where we go through our own sales process and we try to grab commitment verbally, right? What is your project? What are the details of it? What is the budget? Did you finance this? Da, 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 da. Get all the details, right? And so by the end, we're just making it unreasonable that by the end there's not a qualified prospect by the end of that, right? And that is going to come from the solution versus problem-based marketing. We're stepping away from what everyone is doing on this planet Earth, and we're taking a new step in a better direction, which is going to be problem-based marketing, the education approach. And now that they clicked on our ad, they go through our funnel, they get contacted by the AI, so now they're off of Facebook completely and they're in the DMs. Now the client is in their messages and the internal sales team is calling them. This is helping them disconnect from the funnel, from the actual Facebook, and disconnecting from them finding someone else because now they're in our pockets, right? And so that's the one thing I wanted to make very clear as to our process, from the 50% being the theory to the other 50% being the actual infrastructure. And the most important parts of the infrastructure is not the automations, not the integrations. It's the AI agents that get them off of the platform, one. And two is going to be the internal sales team that goes ahead and calls and goes through the sales process, right? The discovery process. Okay. So these are the two biggest things. Like I said, I wasn't holding anything back. And the biggest thing here now is I hope you can see the connection between, if we were to take a step back in awareness, how different would the people you talk to be and how much more of them would come through your pipeline. And second, do you see, it's not about guarantees. It's not about like, hey, does this sound irrational? Like, we can make a funnel make logistical sense. We can make this make sense, right? It's not about guarantees. It's not about contractual, like, hey, we can get you X amount of projects in X amount of days. Most designers make decisions just based on the guarantees or whatever someone has in their writing, but it almost always ends in a bad experience. It's because the competence of the agency is actually relying on their contract to actually close deals and like sign people on, right? They're relying on what's written versus their actual competence, right? And most times there's nothing guaranteed in life. There really isn't. And so the biggest thing here is we need to create unreasonability, right? There's no guarantee that your design firm will make it to the next day, God forbid, right? But the unreasonability that they actually will survive the next day is much very, very likely, and therefore it happens, right? And so the biggest goal here is to not create nuance. It's not to create confusion. It's really just to create unreasonability, meaning that it'd be unreasonable that by the end of this process, from point A being the marketing to the last point being the infrastructure, that by the end you don't have a closed project. That by the end you're not closing on a bigger fee than you do typically, right? So with that said, I know we're 22 minutes in. I hope you enjoyed this, as in I hope that you have been listening in tune, and very took these things serious and really like try to understand each part of this, because it will be something we cover on a call if you have with us. But the biggest thing here is that by the end you should be able to easily do this on your own, one. And two is that if you're looking for the execution part, because now at this point you understand the knowledge, you understand how to do this, the next piece in this is actually the execution, which most designers don't or struggle with, right? And so we can absolutely talk about how we can execute this for you and the strategy behind it, the investment, things of that nature. If you don't have a booked call with us, please book the call with us. It's literally like 20 minutes, maybe up to about 40, just going through this process and making sure we can put together a strategy that aligns with your goals going from point A to point B, and so that we can backtrack that, study that, measure that, and then by the end present you something with an actual plan, right? Where at that point you have clarity, you have no doubt, and at that point you're clear as an understanding as what you want to do, right? And so ideally, all we're here to do is help you make the best decision for yourself, and that's going to come from information. It's going to come from clarity, and we're here to provide that for you. Okay. Now, from this point, if you enjoyed the video, take care of yourself. We'll see you on the other side. Ciao.